Welcome to the Pure Parenthood podcast, brought to you by Purebaby. I'm your host, Tiffany Wells, and I'm the head educator here at Purebaby. Hi everyone, this is our very first episode of Pure Parenthood. A bit about me to start with. I'm a mother of 3 teenagers, a qualified myotherapist, personal trainer and infant massage instructor. Each week I'll be bringing you expert information and advice on a range of different parenting topics from industry leaders within their area of expertise. Our guest today is Kathleen Misquitta, who is a registered nurse with Bachelor's of Science in Nursing, specialising in maternity and neonatal nursing. She's also a mother to a lively toddler with baby number 2 on the way. Kathleen has also been a valued team member at Purebaby for the last few years. Today we'll be discussing what I wish I knew before having my first baby. Hi Kathleen, thanks for coming on today.
Hi Tiffany, thank you so much for having me.
It's such a pleasure. As a parent myself looking back, I often wish I could go back in time and tell my younger self a few things about what I really needed to know before becoming a parent for the first time. I'm sure you've felt that way at times as well, Kathleen, over the last year or so.
Absolutely, I've felt that way with my own toddler, yes.
Did you find that your nursing experience and knowledge helped you as a parent? I think that definitely would have helped me with a few things.
Yes, it definitely helped with some of the practical and medical aspects. But once he was born, I quickly realized there was so much I didn't know or wasn't prepared for as well as I could have been. And I'm still learning along the way.
Yeah, I think we're all learning on this parenthood journey. I have 3 teens, so I'm constantly learning. So today I'd love to chat with you more about, I guess, what you think first-time parents should know before they have their first baby from both a mother's perspective and nursing perspective.
Yeah, wonderful. Sure thing.
Okay, so let's get started. I guess what is the first and most important need to know, do you think, for some of the parents out there that are listening and to start this incredible parenting journey?
Well, this sounds very simple, but I would say first and foremost to just be kind to yourself, because that good self-care will really help you in getting through those precious first few months in the newborn period that can be a bit overwhelming at times. It's really important for women to remember during this journey that many of you will have the same joys, struggles, fears, and anxieties at the start. So remember, you're not alone, and never feel ashamed or weak to ask for help from friends and family. Oftentimes that little bit of extra help, it's just the key to your physical and emotional well-being. I know for myself, simple thing at the end of every day when my son was first born, I just had a little 10 to 15 minute hot shower. It was time to myself to reset, rejuvenate, and relax. And it was so vital, but so simple at the same time. And I just highly recommend that little bit of self-care in those first few months. What about you, Tiffany? What was your experience after the births of your own children with self-care?
Yeah, I definitely struggled with allowing myself to create time for self-care. I wasn't told much about this and the importance of it before becoming a parent at all. I think over the years I've learnt to do some things for myself, such as having a shower in peace, as you just said, which is a great one. I found that taking a brief walk in nature or doing some gardening of some sort can be very grounding for me, literally, like getting my hands in the soil, I think is such a great thing for me. Did you find with all your nursing experience, specifically in the maternity and neonatal areas, that helped you cope better than the average first-time parent, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, but I would say even myself with the 12 years of nursing experience, I was still reaching out to those friends who were really well-seasoned mothers with that invaluable life experience.
Yeah, true. I think talking to others, who've been there, done that can really help, and you can work out too then, like, what's normal, what's not normal, and that's really important too, because sometimes you can feel very alone with something. So knowing what's normal and what's not can be really helpful. So what would be your second piece of advice for first-time parents out there today?
Well, I can't underestimate the importance of just talking to your partner or support person about your goals and expectations before the baby arrives. You want to ask yourself, how will life change once the baby arrives? who will you reach out to for help when you need it? You want to ask, how will going back to work change things for us? Will we need childcare? What about overnight help for the baby? So keeping that communication with your partner open is so important. And also just understanding that your marriage or relationship will change after the baby arrives. And I think it's really healthy for couples to just sit and discuss how you can set aside some time for yourselves, maybe once a week if possible, just to nurture your marriage at the start of your parenthood journey. So, it can be something very simple, but just something to look forward to for yourselves once a week. Where in my own personal experience, I would say I was really lucky to have my husband home with me for those initial 4 weeks after my delivery, and that really helped. But we actually didn't sit down and discuss these other questions ahead of time, and I wish we would have, because we actually needed a lot more help than we anticipated.
Yeah.
We ended up reaching out to my mother-in-law once a week and using a childcare facility once a week as well. And it took us a little while to get into the groove of things with our marriage too, but finally we designated Saturday nights for our little takeout dinner and movie night, and that was just our way of nurturing our marriage and relationship. It was just something simple to look forward to every week after we put our son to sleep. So I highly recommend you doing that for yourselves.
Yeah, that's a great one. I love that. I think that I didn't do any of these things, and I think that would have helped my marriage and so much at that time. And I think that's such great advice. Hopefully all the listeners and parents to be out there will really take that on board, because I think that that's something that's often forgotten about and we don't really give it enough thought. So what are your thoughts about being realistic about your birth plans? I think that's another thing a lot of people kind of have in their mind. I want it to be like this. And what was your own birth experience like? And I guess, how do you think it's best to prepare yourself with coming into that birth and coming into creating a birth plan for yourself?
Yeah, so I would say the best advice I can give is being open-minded and flexible, which in this day and age may not always be so easy, because women are so educated nowadays, and that's a wonderful thing. But if you're open-minded and flexible regarding the birth itself and those initial few months, it's really important, because oftentimes your birth experience and the new schedule that you have will be dictated by your baby, and all babies are a little bit different. So I would say it's okay to have that birth plan. It's excellent to be educated about your options while you're in hospital, but also very important to keep that open mind and remember that yours and the baby's health and safety should be the end goal to any plan. And I would say, in my own personal experience with my first son, it was very different from what I expected it to be. I did have that nursing knowledge. I was very fit in pregnancy. I did my Pilates and I planned for a vaginal birth, but I actually ended up with a 2-day labor, an infection, and a C-section. And still, end result was a healthy baby and a healthy mom in recovery, thankfully. But it did take me a few days to come to terms with this. It wasn't what I had planned for, but the end result was still healthy mom, healthy baby. And I was thankful and at peace for that in the end. What about you, Tiffany? What were your birth experiences? Were they different from what you expected with your own children?
Yeah, well, my 3 birth experiences were all different. Like, they were just not what I expected at all, really. And I think similarly to you, they all had some type of intervention. Look, not to the extent that you had, but definitely some form of intervention with all of my births. But I still managed to integrate some things into either the labour or the birth that I still wanted to include. So I was quite lucky, and one of the lucky ones, I think, in that regard. And I think there's lots of things we need to be, like you said, open-minded about, because you don't know what's going to happen on the day. So definitely being open-minded, that's a great piece of advice there. So do you think that there should be more information given with regards to how your body might feel after birth? Because I felt that after giving birth to my first baby, I really didn't expect a lot of the things that I felt and that happened. And I didn't know what was normal and what wasn't so normal. So do you think that having more information given to you prior to your birth might be really useful?
Yes, absolutely. So, I mean, I think women need to expect to feel sore in those first few weeks while you're bouncing back after your delivery. So, I would say again, be kind to yourself. Try to keep as comfortable as you can. I think it's such a nice idea to just take a few items, comfy and cute items out of your maternity wardrobe, set those aside for postpartum, and wear those things while you're getting back into shape in those first few weeks. Because it takes a few weeks at least for those fluids to leave your body from the pregnancy. And it's important for you to be comfortable. So for me, it was kind of an all black wardrobe, cotton, soft and stretchy. And that really helped me. I would say for women who are expecting to have a vaginal delivery, you can expect quite a lot of swelling depending on the amount of time you push. You'll expect swelling in your perineal area. And what you can do for comfort is apply an ice pack with a witch hazel astringent in the first 24 hours or so following your delivery. That's really going to help decrease the swelling that you have down below in the first day. And then in day 2 and 3 following your delivery, you want to speak to your nurse about pain control, obviously, too. But what you can do in day 2 and 3 is use just a warm water rinse to the area. You can even just use a little warm squirt bottle. And that warm water is going to help facilitate blood flow and healing to the area. So it's just really important. For women who are expecting to have a cesarean section, have a chat with your nurse about your pain control, because the more you're able to get up and moving and looking after your baby, the better you're going to feel about yourself in those days following the delivery. A little bit of light walking as soon as it's safe is really helpful. So I would say, that discussion with your nurse about pain control is really important, and just try to get up and moving with your light walking and care of your baby as soon as it's safe for you. Try also to rest while your baby's resting. That'll also help in your recovery. Now, whether you've had a cesarean or a vaginal delivery, you want to drink lots of water, because that's going to help replenish and boost up your blood volume and help establish your milk supply. A common complaint in the postpartum period is constipation. So what you can do is take a stool softener. You can increase your fiber intake. You can also increase your water intake and walk. Those will all help in relieving that feeling of constipation or preventing it. And lastly, I would tell women to just expect to feel those highs and lows due to hormone fluctuations, especially on day 3 to 4 postpartum. This is a really good time for you to limit your visitors and just get plenty of rest. I know I had to be told this even myself. I was in that day 3 to 4 mark and very teary, and my nurse said, that's okay. This is normal with your hormones. And it was a really good time for me to just rest. And during this time, what's happening in your body is your estrogen and progesterone levels will be decreasing, and your oxytocin and prolactin levels will be increasing and fluctuating based on the amount of breastfeeding the baby's doing. So these fluctuations in your hormones cause this unexpected teariness that just comes over you especially around day 3 to 4 postpartum. So just understand it's extremely normal during this time period. Be kind to yourself, be patient with yourself, and remember that your hormones will level out in those weeks that follow your delivery. And if you're feeling bluesy beyond that period, there's also plenty of support available to you. Your maternal child health nurse will be assessing you for that.
Yeah, there's some great info there for the listeners, that's for sure. I mean, I remember those few days as well, feeling really teary after having my first and thinking, what's wrong with me? So when you mentioned that you'd had that as well, it's so true, and it's happened with all of my babies, and you forget that happened. So it's actually great to be reminded of that and to remember how real it is and to expect that, because I think, again, knowing what's normal, at least you think, okay, well, I remember reading that or hearing that. So it's so important to understand what your body needs and get the right support, whether it be, for your body or emotionally. So I think, after 3 births, I know a lot more about it now, but I think that's so great that you've really brought that up now. Did you struggle with breastfeeding at all? Because I did with my my first, definitely, but had then some great experiences. Like my second and third it was a breeze, had no issues. So what would be your biggest piece of advice on breastfeeding for first time parents?
Yes. So, I mean, I definitely struggled pushing through the fatigue at the start. And I knew that breastfeeding can be very difficult. So, I would say to all you first time moms, again, be kind to yourself and just remember there are many different ways to feed your baby. It's also really important to remember that breastfeeding requires a lot of learning at the start from both mom and baby. So your baby is used to being fed very passively in the womb over this 9-month period leading up to the birth. The baby's fed via the umbilical cord. So the sucking, the swallowing, the latching, positioning, this is all new for you and the baby, and just be patient and give yourselves time to learn. So seeking the support of a lactation consultant while you're in hospital, and then again after you've gone home, that can be really, really helpful, especially if you're having difficulty with the latching and positioning. Sometimes just that 1 hour visit with the consultant might be all the help you need to really boost up your morale and confidence levels during feedings. The lactation consultants can also really help get you through that initial nipple soreness that you'll experience with your first baby. So what happens with your first baby, the skin will be callousing over time as it's getting used to all of these feedings and all of this stimulation. And it will be sore at the start, even if the baby is latching properly. So there are creams and gel packs available for comfort, as well as hot and cold packs to kind of help alleviate that breast pain that you may experience whenever your milk fully comes in and you become engorged. So I would also add that it's okay if breastfeeding in the traditional sense doesn't work out for you. If you're not able to latch and position your baby comfortably and you really want your baby to have that breast milk, you can purchase or rent a breast pump. You can pump the milk, express it, and feed the baby in a bottle. Or if bottle feeding your baby formula exclusively is the right choice for you, that is okay too. I think feeding your baby, it's a beautiful time to bond with your baby. So whether you're breastfeeding or bottle feeding, regardless of what you choose, the end goal is a healthy and happy, well-nourished baby.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is such an important message with regards to breastfeeding, because I think, I guess there's a lot of information out there about breastfeeding, but I think it's really important to look into it in more detail, because I don't think I looked into it nearly enough before having my first. And I think if I'd had more information, I might have felt more empowered with that knowledge and made better, more informed decisions, and probably would have felt a lot less guilty when I struggled with breastfeeding and had to stop after a couple of weeks with my first. So I'm sure that new parents out there listening will really appreciate this advice, and I wish I'd learned more definitely before having my first baby and having her in my arms and having a nurse or lactation consultant there with me for the first time and not knowing what to do. So I think that this particular section is just so vital and so great that we've covered today. Do you also have some other tips on how to work out why your baby's crying and why this is all going on with them? Because I think, it took me a long time to work out why my baby was crying initially. Can you give us some hot tips on that? Because I think that's definitely an area that everyone struggles with their first baby.
Yes, absolutely. So decoding newborn tears. Why is my baby crying? This is such a common question that new parents have. And I would just emphasize, first of all, to take care of yourself as a parent and try to remain calm. But I know it's very difficult. Even when my 3-year-old cries now, it stresses me out. So ask for help from your loved ones when you need it. And, even when your teenagers cry, Tiffany, I'm sure you just feel very stressed as a parent because you don't want to see your children uncomfortable. So it's normal. But with newborns, I would say crying is a normal part of your newborn's development. So it's really important for you to understand that it usually peaks around 6 to 8 weeks after birth and then gradually decreases. And this is the way your baby's communicating his or or her needs. So it's our job as parents just to try to decode those tears and understand what the baby's asking for. And I just have a little list that I would give my patients, a common list of what your baby may be feeling while crying. And first of all, I would say ask, could the baby be hungry? So most newborns eat around every 2 to 3 hours, and crying can be a late sign of hunger. So to prevent those tears, I would say try to observe your baby for those early feeding cues, like lip smacking, rooting, hand to mouth movements. Act on those early feeding cues to prevent the tears later related to being hungry. Next, you may ask, is my baby tired? So newborn babies normally sleep around 8 hours in the daytime and then usually around 8 hours at night. Usually they only wake for changing and feeding. So try to observe for sleepy time cues like rubbing of eyes, yawning before the baby gets to the stage of being very fussy and tired. Act on those early sleepy time cues if you can, and it'll prevent tears related to being too tired. This is a very simple one. You may ask, is the baby wet or dirty? So dirty diapers are a really common cause of newborn tears. What you can do is try to check the baby's diaper before and after feedings, and that's just going to help prolong comfort levels for your baby. You may also ask, do you think baby wants to be swaddled or held right now? Now, swaddling really makes babies feel secure, and it simulates that intrauterine environment. So that's a really lovely way to settle your baby. If you think your baby might want to be held, you can try skin-to-skin contact, which has a lot of really beautiful physiological benefits for both you as a mother and your baby. So it can help really increase your breast milk. It can help calm you, can help regulate the baby's body temperature. Another beautiful way to settle your baby. Also, you may ask, is baby crying because the baby's too hot or too cold? The simple task of just adding or removing a layer of clothing or a blanket can often really help in improving your baby's comfort level. And finally, this is a really important one. You could ask, is baby overstimulated? So you have to keep in mind that these babies are used to this beautiful, warm, dark, quiet space, which is the womb for 9 months. And then they get out into the hospital environment or your home environment, and it tends to be bright, a bit noisy with a lot of visual stimuli. So I would say during fussy periods, try if you can, just keep your baby in a relaxing environment with minimal visual and auditory stimulation.
Yeah, great. Sometimes it'd be so difficult to work out what your baby wants and needs. So these things are really great to remember. I think if I'd been given a list like this, that would have helped me a lot. So I'm sure that everyone listening today will really love the fact that you've listed a few things there. So what would be the next piece of advice you would offer to someone expecting their first bub, Kathleen?
Yeah, so I would say another really common questions new parents have is, how do I know my baby's getting enough to eat? So newborns often cluster feed during the first several days, and they just appear hungry all the time. That's alarming for new parents who are trying to meet all their baby's needs. So how do you know your baby's getting enough to eat? So as healthcare providers, we check your baby's weight and urine output, and those are the best indicators in the first weeks of the baby's life. So most healthcare providers are going to want to see the baby pass urine at least one time in that first 12 to 24 hours of life. Then that urine output will gradually increase by day 6 of life to around 6 to 8 wet diapers over a 24-hour period. And all of this happens, this increased urine output will happen over that first week as mom's breast milk also increases. So as mom has a good milk supply established, hopefully by the end of that first week, then baby will have quite a lot of urine output, which is a really good sign baby's getting enough to eat. Another indicator of adequate hydration is the transition of newborn stool, which is called meconium. At birth, it's a very black, tarry, kind of alarming looking stool, and it will transition after a few days to a greenish color, and then by about 6 days of life, it'll be a yellow, seedy stool. This transition of stool also occurs as baby's fluid intake increases. So another really good indicator of adequate hydration in the baby. Now, finally, your healthcare provider will be keeping a very close eye on the baby's weight the first few weeks of life. So while you're in hospital, they'll probably weigh the baby every day or so. And it's really important for new parents to understand that newborns, healthy, full-term newborns, normally lose about 5 to 7% of weight from their birth weight in the first week of life or so, which is normal. Now, when the weight drops below 10% of the birth weight, that's the time your healthcare provider may do a detailed assessment to check and see, are baby's nutritional needs being met at this time?
Yeah, this is also good to know. I think knowing more about what this I guess time is going to be like with with pooey nappies and whether they're getting enough to eat is so important, because it can alleviate a lot of stresses that you might have in those first few weeks at home with your baby on your own. I felt as though I was constantly feeding my newborn, and it was so hard to work out if she was getting enough, and to help me feel like I was doing my job and I didn't know what was going on. So and I really struggled with sleep deprivation with my first. So would you have some info that you could share with us with regards to understanding why your baby won't sleep much initially, because that was definitely an issue for me and my little one.
Yes, so the feedings and the sleeping just go hand in hand. And I know most people do know that some babies just do not sleep much at the start. So a very common question new parents have: how much is my baby supposed to sleep? And it's important to understand that there's really no set sleep schedule at the start while you're establishing that feeding schedule. In general, newborns will sleep about 8 to 9 hours during the daytime and about 8 hours at night. But the majority don't start sleeping through the night until they're at least 3 months of age. And some will still be waking at night up to a year and beyond. So those frequent newborn feedings that happen in the first few weeks of life, that's a very common cause of sleepless nights for both babies and new parents, and that's normal. This behavior the newborn exhibits, back-to-back feedings, it's referred to as cluster feeding. This behavior stimulates mom's milk supply. So the more mom's nipples are stimulated, her hormones in her body are released to produce more milk and establish an adequate milk supply. And this time period can be extremely exhausting for new parents, but it does get much easier once mom's milk's fully in. So outside of that cluster feeding period, most newborns will wake and feed around every 3 hours. So what you need to do, you need to check with your healthcare provider based on your baby's needs. They will say, based on age and weight, how much baby needs to be fed. If your baby is born a little bit preterm, the baby may need to be fed a little bit more often. So once that feeding schedule is established with your baby, I would say then it's a really good time to think about trying to incorporate a sleep routine. And singing, reading, massage, these are beautiful ways to spend those few minutes that you have of awake time between feedings and sleep to really help establish that sleep routine with your baby.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thanks so much for that information, Kathleen, because I think understanding a bit more about cluster feeding, why, what's actually going on and why they're going to feed so often is so vital, because again, it's going to help people understand what's normal and what's not. So what would be your final tips here and final things that you'd like to share with everyone today, and things that you would have told yourself before starting on your parenthood journey?
Oh, I mean, I would tell myself that during this incredibly beautiful time in your life, your body is also experiencing things both physically and emotionally that you've never experienced before. So I would say, give yourself a little break. It's okay not to love every minute of being a new mother, and also say that it does get easier over time.
Yeah, I think that that's really important and so beneficial to know that all of this stuff that's going on is normal and it's going to happen and it's okay. Thank you so much for your time today, Kathleen. It's been so insightful and so informative. You have a wealth of knowledge and expertise to offer. I really appreciate your time today, so thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure, Tiffany. Thank you so much for having me.
I would have loved to have had you there before I had my first baby, that's for sure, Kathleen.
Oh, thank you.
Well, as soon-to-be parents out there, we hope this episode has shed some light on some of the things that a lot of parents wish they knew before embarking on this incredible parenthood journey. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in today. I hope you found this helpful. Don't forget to subscribe and tell your friends about this podcast, and if you'd like listening, please leave us a review. See you next time.